just take half an hour.
Okay.
How long is your presentation?
It's usually a little longer than that, but you gotta head out. I mean, I can definitely.
Right. Just what will I be missing? I guess if it's streamed, I could look at it later. But.
So I'm gonna go through the whole tool and give you some ideas on how to use it. Talk about some strategies on what Remine is intended to do.
Okay.
So pick up as much as you can. We can always.
I'll look at this stream later.
Yeah, if you want, like, I'm gonna send out a sign-on form. Just put an asterisk next to your name, and I'll, sync up with you, talk about what you missed, and all that kind of stuff. If that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Hey guys, how's everyone going? Good, good. Let's see if I can get this to go down. Does anyone know how to work the? I don't know. No?
What's that? I can't remember how she did it. Was it over here?
Look at that! Need to know how to, guys. It's possible, like, some of the stuff on the screen is going to be a little small, so just a heads up in the back. It might be kind of small to see. I'll leave it up to you. Thank you very much.
Good enough.
I'm going to pass around a signing form, guys. If you could just sign it.
Shake weight.
All right, I'm going to start a signing form. If you could just kind of pass it around, circulate it a little bit. Appreciate it.
Shut that off so they can see a little better.
Yeah, it's all right. Maybe we're getting warmed up a little bit. But we waiting on any more people, or
There'll probably be more that show up, but I'd say just
About
start.
30 after.
Yeah, that's what happens.
that's all right. Cool. 30 after, we'll start the real presentation. Sorry, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so my name's Taylor. I'm with Remine. Quick show of hands. How many guys here know what Remine is? Have seen it, used it? Okay.
A little bit.
Do we have anyone who's using it currently on any of our, levels or anything like that? Or no, not really. Okay. Now, what Remine is a data tool. So I'm actually just going to go straight to it. So give me a second so I can get logged in, and then I'm going to do a live presentation of it. Now, I just did this down in Orem, other Century 21 office. So if any of you guys know Matt is a Remine user. He uses it a lot.
You guys know who Matt is?
Matt Barton.
Yep.
Yeah,
Matt
principal
Barton.
broker.
I'm sure you know. But if you know him enough to talk to him about his use of it and background, there's a lot you can learn from him as well. But give me just a second here. Oops. But for those of you who haven't really had a chance to mess with it, what it is intended to be is a tool that helps you build better list of qualified sellers and buyers, and it pulls data from about 200 sources to get this qualification. So you can see people that are good equity, they have good equity in their home, or people that are predicted to sell or buy a house based on some tracking we're doing of their online activities. So we'll get into the weeds in a little bit, but I usually like to ask, what's the general, you guys do any kind of geographic farming, or is it mostly sphere of influence? Show of hands for like geographic farming.
Done some in the past,
okay.
Not currently.
Okay, and show of hands for people that rely mostly on sphere of influence. Okay, so for the other people, you just kind of don't know.
We use different words. We don't call it farming.
Okay, what do you call it? So
prospecting.
Prospecting.
So it would be geographical prospecting.
Okay, so show of hands for geographical prospecting. So we'll talk about how we can do both of those things in here. Give me 30 seconds. I'm terrible at multitasking, so let me get logged in.
Well, we call it farming too, but farming is not our preferred way to do it.
I guess the way I would call it is just anything related to finding and hunting down new buyers and sellers.
There you go.
So,
prospecting. Conversations.
To that end,
Conversations.
creating conversations, adding to your people that you know, and getting new listings and new buyers. Do we do like print ads? Print ads? Anyone? Okay, some print stuff. Anyone focusing on Facebook? Like a Facebook? Okay. Facebook as well. Any phone calls? Direct phone calls? Okay. Gotcha.
All right, there better be a lot of hands for them.
There were two.
Is your name email
Sean,
address?
was yours one?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you guys see that all right?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to kind of walk through this tool, but let me lay out the structure of what this platform is. So first of all, this is something you have access to right now. We have a basic version of Remine that every single agent within the Utah real estate system has access to. So it does actually exclude people that are only members of like people, the MLS down in St. George or up in Park City. So you get a slight advantage over those agents, just as a heads up. But the data spans the entire country. So we have data on properties and people across Utah, across all the Southwest, across all the United States. Now, what we're looking at here is a representation of Salt Lake City. So you guys, I'm sure, have logged into Google Maps to maybe look up directions. We partner with Google. So we're looking at the Google map view with a key difference. So you see where it says zoom in till you see blue dots, quote unquote properties? That's all these blue dots along the map. Now, each dot has about 25 years worth of data that we're pulling from all of those different sources. So banks, we're pulling it from consumer files to get phone numbers and emails for people. We're pulling people's credit scores. It's definitely a tool that walks the line of what I would call creepy cool. More cool, a little less creepy, but there's so much data out there that's accessible that retailers and like places like Google are using to market to us every day, that for a reason that's beyond me, real estate agents haven't really gotten into. They haven't adopted a lot of times being focused on segmenting their audience. They're just kind of throwing money out there and seeing what sticks. This tool, just so you know, was invented by a real estate team. I knew the team that created it, and that's how I got involved. It's grown dramatically since then. But if you want to look up our story, there's Leo Pareja and the Leo Pareja team actually originally put this tool together for their own use. They had a pretty large team. There's about 4,000 homes that they sold in the years they were in operation, about $2 billion in transactional volume. And they put it together because they were just burning money on marketing. They felt like they didn't have any way to have those dollars go to the right people. They were just hoping for the best. So when we're looking at this map, and what the tool is intended for is to, one, be able to target your audience better. Two, track that audience. So this page here is called Discover. You see way at the top there. Discover, I can pull qualified leads out of Discover and track them. Track we're going to go through as well. It's going to be a list view. On Track, I can do things like build mailing list, create mailing labels. I can even export phone numbers, emails to do like a targeted Facebook ad, which I'll talk about during the course of this presentation. And everything that I'm tracking, I'm actually going to get real-time alerts for. The real-time alerts are going to look like, hey, property that is 3 houses down from you, your relative neighbor that maybe you don't know that well, unfortunately is getting a divorce, so we predict them to sell sometime in the next year. So it's real-time alerts that help target people that are kind of hot irons in the fire, if that makes sense.
Taylor?
Yeah.
One quick question. I see that there's Pro next to your name.
Right.
So are you showing us the version that comes with our MLS, or are you showing us
I'm going to give you the whole
higher version that costs more money?
So I'm going to give you the whole rundown.
Okay.
So you can do a lot with the standard kind of basic starter version, and I'll give you the clear line of where that's drawn. we have 3 levels after that, where it goes from that to upgraded versions. Now the upgraded versions are monthly, and they start at $29, but they start unlocking pretty cool stuff. Like you can get more alerts on like your whole zip code or something like that. So I'll give you kind of a clear definition of that, but let's start with the basics and kind of build our way up, if that's okay. Now, when I started this, I want you guys to know, please don't worry about interrupting me. The last class was great because everyone was asking questions. Challenge me, you know, say something if you disagree with what I'm saying. So jump in just like that. So thank you for that. Now, let's start with the basics. We're here in, you know, Midvale. So let's go to the search bar first. So search bar has some cool abilities, right? If I'm typing in a word, that word will try to pull matching things, whatever it might mean. So if I look up here, I see zip codes. Those are both in Midvale. That's why it's coming up, because I typed in Midvale. But I can also say, well, did you mean this person named Midvale Marker, which is a very odd name, but there's someone named Midvale Marker. You get where they live and their entire address details. You'll also be able to search individual addresses on the basic plan. One level up will allow you to do subdivision searches, so we can actually rubber band off a subdivision, get Central Midvale, Old Town Midvale, etc. And in addition, you can do school district boundaries. So if anyone has ever had a client that says, I want my kid to go to Jordan Valley School, and I don't want to live in any house or even look at a house outside of that school district, that's another thing you can do here. You can pull all active listings from a specific school area. So questions there? No. All right, so let's just go to Central Midvale, Salt Lake City. And what that does is creates that little farm for me. So if you see here, there's a number at the top right corner. That number says 499, so there's about 500 homes that are classified as Central Midvale as that subdivision. Now, I'm just going to remove my rubber band here just to get as many dots as I can, since this is sort of a small compressed screen that you guys are viewing it on. And you can see that I've got 1,600 results. The whole point of this is, if you know nothing about an area that you're reaching out to, probably about 50 to 60% of these people are terrible prospects for you trying to do any kind of seller or buyer campaigns. They either just moved in, maybe they just refinanced, or they're just not in a life situation where it makes any sense at all to do anything. So the traditional approach of just saying, hey, I'm going to take 500 homes and every single one of them is going to have my face works, but it only works over a long period of time where you're kind of churning through, waiting for someone to get back to you because they got a postcard from you every year for 5 years, right? So let's start with the basics. If you haven't viewed an address, let's do that real quick. I want to click on one that has a loan. All right, here's a decent one. So we have Wasatch Street in Midvale. If you see here, it's got a quick summary. So it's going to tell me that, hey, this is a single family house. It's 3 beds, 2 baths, owned by the Nasir family. We do have on each property loan balances, value and net equity. Now, one of the sources we're pulling data from is credit bureaus, and that's where we're pulling the loan balance. Banks report to credit bureaus. We have a link into credit bureaus, hence we know a relatively close to the truth loan balance as of the last reporting to the credit bureau. So these are not original loan balances, these are today's values. That's super useful because I see here that the Sears are kind of halfway paid off. They got about half of the home, 50% equity in the home. That's going to be a lot better prospect than their neighbor that just got a new refinance loan that isn't going anywhere for the next 15 years at least. Now,
And where are you getting the value from?
the value is from, we have a few different value sources, and I'll talk about it on this page here.
Okay.
But the value on that little summary card, the one we're putting up there, is the First American estimate. Title insurance company, they do mortgage insurance, and they have a few different AVMs that they use. It's conservative. I would say that it's still an AVM, automated valuation model. So it's based on statistics rather than you know, a physical walkthrough or appraisal of the property. So it's not going to take the place of the real estate agent, which is kind of the point. But it is something to help give you a barometer. Like, I'll show you in just a minute on the value section. But let's take a look at what we got here. I'm not going to run through everything on this page because there's a ton of data, and all of it's free. You can get on any property, anywhere in the country, this amount of data on the plan that you have access to right now. Now, let's move
You
down.
can do other states or
Yep.
only
You can
what's
do-
on our WFR?
You can go to any state you want. The search bar, just as a quick heads up, is designed so that it shows you stuff in Utah, because if you typed in 123 Main Street, you don't want to see 9 million results. So the map, though, if you moved it anywhere else, you get this level of data anywhere we have property details. We've got about 80% of property records in the United States right now. So some of the rural areas, some lacking data, but that's like the boonies, you know. But good question. Now, let's move down a little bit. So first thing you get is any kind of MLS information. So we hold on to MLS information for a few reasons. One, it's one of the things we're running our analytics on that I'll talk about. Two, it's actually pretty convenient to see what happened last time this house was sold or if it expired. So all the old listing details are still in here from 2004, where Christine and Blake were involved in getting this home sold. But off market, I'm going to give you the Google Street View, kind of look around. It's going to give you stuff that today you could probably find in other systems, like tax information. We're actually in talks with the Utah board to be the primary tax police for where you pull any tax records. Today, you probably go to Matrix and you have like something like Realist or one of these other tax tools. All of that's here, so that's kind of convenient. But it's got any other public records we can find in this home too. So, you know, if this is a rental property, we'd have like mailing address for where the actual landlord lives. This is where that mortgage is detailed. So you can see, looks like Key Bank is a lender, about a 3.75% rate. Taken out for about $150,000, and the current balance is $150 across both of these mortgages. So they had a second line of credit taken out a couple of years after. Now, moving down, you have schools associated with each property. So as I showed you before, that's one of the things you can search and build a boundary for. But we'll give you the schools that you can go to if you live here, as well as a rating. And to your point, you asked about valuations. Today in Utah, we pull three. So there's First American, Zillow, and Appraisal. First American tends to be fairly conservative. You know, we find that they are fairly respected in the industry. Zillow, not so much. Zillow's there because if you've ever gone on a listing appointment where someone's super enthusiastic about their Zestimate, you know that sometimes you have to kind of massage that conversation, say, well, let's look at some other perspectives before we list your house at $500,000 because the Zillow Zestimate said so. So useful perspective is what I think of that as. Now, moving down, we got demographics on about a 2-mile radius. Now, demographics are collected individually, but we don't want to cross that line from cool into creepy, so we don't show them to you on each individual address. We don't show you that Paul Johnson lives here, he's 43, etc. We tell you what the area looks like in about a 2-mile area around that particular home. So household, education, career, income, get a quick look at the area. All of these factor into those statistics we'll talk about later. Down here you have property history and mortgages going back to 1990. So anything that's happened here, like transactions or listings, are the common things you'll see. But you'll often see other things, like, I don't know if you guys can read that, but affidavit of death of joint tenant. There was a death at the property. So we track deaths, divorce, marriage, all kinds of things that typically drive people to sell their home are things we track. And on any version past the beginning version, you can start building large lists to get alerts on things like that. Because if you know someone recently very close by or in one of your areas that you're doing some prospecting, not farming, if you know that someone had a divorce, you might gently reach out and say, I'm there for you, or something like that. Maybe not quite that messaging, but it usually precipitates a sale of the house, right? So moving down, you got mortgages and associated people. Now, associated people is going to give you owners, and if we can find them, occupants. Owners are going to be people that are on the deed. So if it says owner next to their name, you can know that they actually are the owner of the property. If it doesn't say anything, they get mail there. So we think that they are potentially an occupant. So you'll find things like tenants there. You'll find things like adult children there. Anyone over 18 that actually receives mail at a property is listed on these associated people. So if you're looking for buyers, that's one source of finding them. Now, everything so far, up until that sentence, that's all something you can do on any property. You don't have any restrictions. You can do it anywhere in the country. These two people, they have actually not a lot, but they're a little bit of contact details, phone numbers. We have phone numbers, emails, and social media accounts for most people. At the very bare minimum, we have at least phone numbers. Most of the time we have emails, and some of the time we have their social media accounts. And I answer your question, potentially, but why don't you ask it?
We don't have the phone numbers. Is that just Pro?
Yeah, I was going to mention, so if you're on the basic version, it's going to say locked. If you're on one of the upgraded versions, which is the Pro, you get them included. Now, if you want them on one of the lower versions, you can still get them. They're $3 per address. So what that means is the lower versions are more focused on print and kind of door knocking, where the Pro is more based on kind of getting big list of direct contact details. But I'll go through the different levels a little more detail as well. Thanks for the question. Now, I'm going to go back to the map, but before I get there and start talking at you, anyone else have any other questions on what we just talked about on the details page?
I have a question on this summary. Cell score is low.
Okay, so yeah, so cell score we'll talk about.
Okay.
That's one of the things we're doing to run analytics. We have both cell score and we have a buy score.
Buy score. Yeah, so their buy was medium, their sell is low.
Yep. So I mean,
And you can probably do searches based on those scores, right?
yep. I'm just gonna jump into that conversation. So you see David Ventura here. He's got the same sort of thing where he has a low cell score but a high buy score. Cell score is based on the details we know about a property. So we're saying that this property here, 1001 Barton Court, what we know of it, he's the primary owner, this is his current residence. We just don't see him selling it. He's been owning it for about 5 years. He's probably not paid down too much on it. So what we're tracking for cell score is equity, time of ownership, divorce, marriage, anything that might influence someone to sell it. For the buy score, we're tracking person details. So we're tracking your credit score, your age, your income, your previous addresses. So when you ask about David, and he has a low cell score and a high buy score, the reason for that is if I click on his name, I have a background of homes that he owns currently and previously. So he has a single family home that he lives at, and then he has 2 multi-family condos that he owns on top of that. So David's an investor. So we don't see him selling his house, but we see him probably buying another one sometime soon. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jumping ahead a little bit, but thank you for the question. One thing I missed, and it's actually really useful on the basic version. Let's say that you have a listing appointment, someone's thinking about listing their home, and you want to share this with them. You can print this detailed page, and you can say it's for a client to get rid of some of the sensitive stuff like the demographics. And it gives you this page in a convenient report view. I'll just view the sample real quick. So it's got this kind of convenient report that pulls all that data together, so you can kind of walk them through it, send an email, say, hey, don't trust this estimate, all that stuff. It's got pretty much everything on that page, including pictures if they're in the tool.
Could you tell the part you were saying about the taxes again? Like, where do you get all the tax information? Just straight from the county tax?
Yes. So,
but you're trying to what?
So we're in talks with Utah Real Estate MLS, to replace the other tax tool just because why have that many and it only does taxes, you know, what's the point? So I was just actually talking about that on my last meeting, but so what it will be is that next to your stuff in the MLS, like we have it set up in California, where there's a little like Remine icon and you can like pop a little summary thing that says the taxes, so you don't have to jump between different tools. Same exact data, so that's what I was saying. So again, that's part of the starter already, so we're just making it easier for you to access. Does that make sense?
And increasing your branding.
That's true.
It's all about branding.
I mean, so I didn't talk about myself. So like, I joined Remine as an agent. So I did mainly buy and hold investor work in Texas for about 7 years. And I joined because I was doing this stuff by looking up things one at a time. Like I wanted to target people that didn't live in their home, that it was run down. And I had to look up tax records one at a time, and it was sort of a pain. I knew someone, one of the people who kind of were the first people in Remine, reached out, and I was doing the Fortune 500 thing in real estate part-time, and I was like, this is amazing. I could have used this like my whole life. So that's why I joined. But you know, we want this to be a tool that's useful to you. That's why we do these trainings. Even if you're using the starter, getting there and using it makes it so that other agents can get feedback and get better, and the tool gets better and better. So yeah, of course you want it to be LinkedIn and easy to use, and there's branding there, but I would say that more it's that the MLS and all the people that have already invested in it are part of the real estate community, and this is a tool to help take back that sort of disenfranchisement that I just saw in a commercial the other day, that you get an app to sell your house. You don't have to do anything with anyone. The app sells your house. And I was like, interesting, but yeah, good comments. Now, let's get on the map. So if you guys can see, there's a bunch of icons down the left here. The icons, the first few, like the first few up here, these ones are on the starter. As we get further down this list, they're on one level up. So basically these are free, and then one level up, $29, you get pretty much everything else. So I just want to make that clear. Now, what they are intended to do, there's also some along the top here. So I get these questions all the time. Can I find a house that has a certain number of beds, bath, or, you know, maybe, I had a really good question the other day. So someone wanted to filter by number of floors, you see over here. So they said, I want to do number of floors because there's a lot of old folks in this neighborhood, and anyone that has more than one floor, I want to see if they're looking to change out to a ranch style home. I was like, that's a good idea. But that's what these filters are intended for, right? So I'm just going to run down the list, and then I'm going to give you an example of how to kind of combine them, how it all comes together. So the list up top here, I think, is self-explanatory, and all of those are included on the basic version. Next one is MLS status. So MLS status is obviously one that's included on the basic version, and you know, it's comparing like expireds going back, you know, however many months or years. A lot of people are doing expired calls, things like that. Next down this list, Airbnb. Do you guys know Airbnb?
Yeah.
Okay, so my example there, I had someone call me yesterday, and I never really gave an example with Airbnb, but they gave me an example, and I thought it was cool. So they had someone reach out to them that said, I'm looking for a short-term rental. And instead of her trying to find a lease or something like that, she's like, I got you. She pulled up Airbnbs in an area that she knew that she liked, and she just sent the links to these because they're all actually linked to the actual listings in Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I use it. I never knew, but you find out more by people telling you than you being the trainer, right? Student has become the master. But moving down, last sales price. I'm just going to give you how I would use this one. So do we have any people in here that like to focus or work with investors or are investors themselves? Anybody? Okay. So last sales price, two things you can do with it. If you're focusing on investment properties, I like to compare last sales price to this one down here, which I'll just jump ahead a little bit. It's property value. So this is what the home sold for previously. It could be 20 years ago, it could be whenever it sold. And this is what the estimated value today is. So if you see houses that have not gone up very much, there's a very good chance if that person's owned it for the whole time, it's not been renovated. It's a tear down property, something like that can be a flip. Alternatively, if you guys have anyone doing any kind of site where it says, I'll tell you your home value. Anyone done that before? Okay. So what I like to do is take last sales price, people who have owned it for a long time, and compare it to property values today and say, did you know your house has appreciated 200% since you've owned it? Give me a call or email me to find out your home value. And that's a better message than just, I'm in the area, you know? Now, moving down this list, we have mortgage rates. So this is the current rate on the mortgage. I think I noticed a mortgage company downstairs. Anyone partner specifically with lenders to do any kind of co-branded stuff? A little bit of that. So a lot of times it's just, hey, mortgage broker, do you have anyone for me to reach out to? Any pre-qualified people? But now you can kind of work together and target some of these people that are paying too much, like 6% on their mortgage. I specifically like to do 6% people living in condos and people that have had that mortgage for 5 or more years. Because if you have those people, you can reach out and say, I can upgrade your house for roughly what you pay, get a bigger, nicer, newer home without paying anything extra. So it tends to be a good messaging. Ownership time is going to be a very useful one for obvious reasons. If you just moved in, you're probably not going to be a good candidate to sell your house. Mortgage age, I just talked about with mortgage rate. It's how long has the mortgage been paid on, or is it completely paid off? Property value I mentioned earlier. It's useful for a variety of reasons. If you have a tendency to focus on luxury homes or lower end homes, you can kind of filter those out. Equity, is probably one of the most commonly used filters. And by the way, right about here, we're getting into our premium filters. So equity is going to be used for any number of reasons. But I would tell you, just like ownership time, if I just got a loan out on my property, a refinance or something like that, my likelihood of selling is almost zero because there's no reason for me to. I did talk about sell score already. We jumped ahead a little bit, but this is the filter for sell score. So sell score is broken to high, medium, low. High is going to be people who we think are 5 to 10 times more likely to sell. Medium is going to be about 2 times as likely to sell. And low, we don't see anything special in their profile to make us think they're going to sell sometime in the next 12 months. Questions on that one? I know there were some questions earlier. Okay. All right. Land use. This one's got a lot of filters. These are zoning codes, right? So most commonly used ones I see are utilities, looking for something backing up to a utility. Had a guy that was focusing on vacant properties of land, like vacant land, selling and buying those, and then commercial properties is something you can pull as a list as well. Moving on down the list, we got building type. So you can filter out single family versus condos or townhomes or multifamily. Flood zones. So not a lot of flood zones out here, but anytime you get anywhere close to lakes, rivers, things like that, this is an extremely useful filter, just high risk versus low risk based on the current FEMA maps. This is one I use all the time. This is occupancy. So you can filter out an area based on owner occupants, corporate, which is both corporate like LLC or trustees, in-state absentees and out-of-state absentees. Now, any reaching out to out-of-state absentees, that's something I did personally. Anyone else done that before? People do an absentee list? So if you're scratching your head, why would you do that? It's because if you have the mailing address and the direct contact details, these absentees in places like Utah tend to be snowbirds, and they tend to be people that at some point are going to plan to sell their house. They might just be waiting for the right moment. And on top of that, if you live out of state and you're managing a property, either you're paying someone to do that or you're trying to do it yourself. And from experience, I can tell you that's a pretty big headache. I own 2 rental properties in Texas, and one of them I just had a big plumbing issue last year. I was like, I need to sell this house. So the more often that happens, the more likely you are to kind of unload that property. Distressed deals, there's one down here actually. There's not a whole lot in Utah, there's actually one or two. This one's actually already pending. So distressed deals are people in some form of notice from the bank. So we start with the lease pendants, people that are 60 to 90 days late on their mortgage. Notice of default, which is when you're actually in default with the bank officially. Notice of foreclosure, which you're too late now to get out of default, go back to rescission to lease pendants. And then the trustee sale, which is actually the notice that your property is going to be auctioned and when that's going to happen. Now, if you do any short sales, this is obviously useful, but it's also useful if you have like clientele that are investors looking for good deals in an area. So it's a pretty useful filter. Last one here on the list is going to be cash buyers. Cash buyers is anyone that did not use a mortgage at the time to purchase that property. So investors, wealthier homeowners, and it actually includes cashless transactions like inheritance. Now, I'm going to give you an example using these filters. I think that's where it starts making sense. I got a lot of blank stares and some nods, but we'll get more nods, I think. So up here, you see this number. Can you guys read that number? Mm-hmm. So 1,900 results. If I wanted to say, send something out to 1,900 results, it's going to cost a lot. So what you can do with a tool like this is start filtering some of the junk out. So let's get rid of people that just moved in. Let's say we want to look for a new listing, which is a pretty common desire, right? So we're prospecting for people that might want to sell their home. I'm not going to prospect for someone who just moved in. So let's filter out anyone that moved in less than 5 years ago, because obviously they're probably not great candidates, and click apply. So you can see up here, just to kind of point out everything, it says ownership time is 5 years or more. We went from about 1,900 results and excluded roughly 1,000 people that moved in less than 5 years ago. So that already is kind of a dramatic drop. Those 1,000 people, if you're sending stuff out to, I know it might be 30 to 40 cents to send them a postcard, but that 30 or 40 cents added up times 1,000 is $300 that you didn't need to spend. Now, moving down the list, equity is the next one I would use. So to me, kind of an obvious one. If you just refinance, you just got a loan out, probably not a good candidate. So let's say $100,000 or more in equity. Click apply.
What does unmapped listings mean?
So unmapped listings are listings that we couldn't place a pin on the map because of one of multiple reasons. It might be that it is a unit in a condo that is showing up in our multi-unit thing that's not on the map. Or it might be just the fact that the county has some odd data on GIS information and the pin can't be placed on the map. So it's just an indication of, if you don't see the dot here, there's a list of unmapped listings.
Okay.
So what does it mean there's 790 results total and 629 are unmapped? It doesn't look like that.
So 790 results total and 629 total in this map area are unmapped. They're not showing as pins on this.
So there's like 1,400 listings in there and 629 you can't see. Or is there 700 and whatever?
This one's not based on the filters. The filters is this results right here. So if you're saving a list, keep an eye on the bold number. We're just putting that, we just put that up there as an indicator because someone's like, I can't find the dot. And so now you can still find the information. It's just is in the unmapped listing. So if you want to find an address, you type in an address.
Okay.
It's a little bit in the weeds. We just put it there for a disclaimer because there's going to be a couple situations where it's hard to put a pin on the map, if that makes sense. But the 790 is the total amount that I have in this area that meet my 2 criteria. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Was there another question or thought? Hand shot up and down? Maybe not. Okay.
I do. I have a question. So do you shrink it up and shrink it down to get your results, or do you map it?
So this is what's viewing on my map. And with this projector system, it's kind of squished. So that's as far as I can zoom out.
Yeah, but do you draw a line, or is it just whatever's on your screen?
It's either whatever on my screen, or I can draw, something. If I wanted to filter by a square, I can do that too. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, last filter I was going to apply, because I like to know my audience. I mean, both landlords and tenants, landlords and owner occupants are going to sell their house eventually, but they sell it for totally different reasons. So sending them the same thing is not always the best approach. So in this particular example, let's do owner occupied and apply. And now this might be a list. We do some door knocking, door hangers, something low cost, postcards, or even some sort of phone call campaign. But instead of 1,900 homes, about 60% of those were, I think, in my opinion, kind of common sense people you wouldn't want to reach out to. People that just moved in, people with zero equity, and people that are landlords, so you're not getting the right audience. So let's save this group. Come over here where it says track all. And I already have a filter name for it. So I have high equity owner occupants. I click save. Now these 567, when I save them, the little blue dots, they turn into these terracotta stars. Got my color game up, doing some painting recently. Terracotta stars on the map to indicate that I'm tracking them. So if you see stars, that's what that means. But the more important part of this is if I move from Discover to the track list, it's got all these people broken down into the categories I've been creating for myself. So I've just been saving all day. I've had 3 of these meetings, saving people into the same group. But I did at one point have an expired example someone asked about. So if I wanted just my expired group, I have 15 results in that list. And depending on what I want to do with this, I mean, I can take this group and I can select it. And I'd asked, who's doing print stuff and who's doing that. Now, if you're doing like the handwritten letters or something small where you print it out and send it out individually, you can print labels right here. It's pretty convenient to do. So it's just the address labels. If you can't see it, it's addressed to the people you've chosen. And you can adjust that. You can do owner or resident, and you can do address or mailing address. I can also typically call these people. So like I said, we have phone numbers, emails, social media accounts linked into the tool, typically. And I can download this list as well. So if I click this button that says download property CSV, that's where I start taking it to other places. I'm going to talk about that now too, but what's the question, sir?
When you're tracking people on the basic, you have 100 for free?
Correct.
So if you track that and then do a list like this and print it, can you untrack it and then do a different list?
Yes, you can do that on any version.
How many times?
There's no limitation on time. So the way that the tool is intended is that tracking, 1, helps you work with data and export it, but 2, it's going to turn on alerts. So the alerts are going to tell you of the people you're tracking, who's likely to sell, who's likely to buy, who's got a divorce, who's got a marriage. So there's a reason to continue tracking them. It also gives you updates to contact details, phone numbers, emails, which we just bought. So we have 3 sources for our contact information, and we just bought a 4th database of contact details. So we're going to be pushing a bunch of new phone numbers and emails and different accounts. So if you're not tracking them, you wouldn't know that suddenly we have a bunch of new information on people. So there's a reason to continue tracking it. But so we had a couple people raise their hand for the Facebook stuff. I like to cover this. I mean, for you, those of you who have not done Facebook marketing at all, it's pretty popular, especially in Utah and in places that have sort of a, it's got that tech feel, like a lot of tech sector jobs, so people kind of trust what they see on Facebook. So if you've not done any marketing on Facebook or Google, I'm sure you've seen it. If you scroll down a search result in Google, the first few say sponsored or ad or something like that. Same with Facebook. So if you're scrolling down your news feed and you're receiving my ad, it will say Taylor Johnson is in the area. Your house is appreciated 200% since last time you looked at the value. Click here to see your home value. And that just comes to me on my news feed. I'm not getting any emails from anyone. It's just right in the middle. Now, for anyone running ads on Facebook, I don't know if you have heard of this. Facebook custom audiences. Anyone know what this is? Okay. So Facebook custom audiences is going to allow you to create a custom group of people to see that ad as long as you have the data. So if you have someone's phone number, even if it's a do not call number, you have an email, a name, there's about an 80% chance that we can match that, and that particular person or group of people will be the only ones to see your ads. So it takes that shotgun approach that Facebook has, where everyone's seeing your ad, and you got 18-year-olds clicking on it by accident, and everyone else, and focusing it on certain people. You can change the messaging, you can change the spend, you can have a lower budget for your ad campaign, and it makes it far more effective. So that's what I like to cover, because it's something that I learned about actually through, we have a group, a community, and someone did a little tutorial on this that he posted to our Facebook group. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to steal that for telling people, because he had some good results with it. But questions on that?
Yeah, and then on the ad, when it says, if you do want to, get a, current value of your home, click here. Then is it taking you to a landing page that you've got set up with another software company?
It's up to you. So if you wanted to have it just go to a contact me thing, that's free. Facebook has it already. Like, just put your name and number in. But if you wanted to get fancy with it, you can have your own website and have a home valuation thing that has a better contact thing or something else. It's up to you where it links to.
Okay.
So do you have to enter each person in individually?
No, so that's what I was going to say. So if you come in here and you see I have a list of about 2,100 people. Not about exactly 2,100 people somehow. I can take this list and download the entire spreadsheet, and it takes all of that data, and in Facebook, all I have to do is go to Audiences, Upload Custom Audience, and it takes that and matches it as much as it can. Now, with the basic version, you get a column format of first name, last name, and mailing address and property address. And you can get maybe a 20% match with just first name, last name, and zip code on Facebook. But the more data you have, they have 19 factors that they try to match with. You have first name, last name, zip code, address, email, phone number, the chances go way up for getting a match for that particular person. So you get about 80% match with the email and phone. So does that make sense? Hopefully I didn't get too in the weeds, but it's definitely really easy to do. You just click upload list and it says, here's your audience, and then the audience sees whatever ad you're running. But thanks for the questions. Now, I already mentioned this last thing that tracking gets you is these sell score, buy score updates, but it gets you a lot more updates on top of that. I mean, it will tell you pretty much anything that's happening on the people or the properties you're tracking. So if the sell score goes up, it typically will say, hey, sell score went from low to high, and then we'll have an associated alert like there was a divorce of the property or someone has passed away, something like that. For people hitting expireds, like this is an example, so 184 South 400 West went from active to withdrawal. That happens real time. All of these alerts are pretty much as soon as they happen. So, it's interesting that real estate, it's getting more and more data driven, but it's kind of late to the game. So if you've, for instance, have ever done any shopping online, you're shopping on Amazon, buying something. The next time you log in, it's going to show you things that it thinks you want to buy. It's going to keep doing that forever. So this is that exact approach, but for your real estate business. Now, why this is helpful is I can do it for things that I'm doing prospecting for, and I can also do it for my sphere of influence. So if I have my own contacts that I want to upload, I can kind of put them on autopilot. I can see if they're likely to buy or sell a home. I can get notifications on things that change, like if they have some information, like for instance, we track occupancy from a new kid thing. Like they live in a tiny condo, they have a new kid, their sales score might go up, you can reach out. And we have a lot of agents that do sphere of influence mining with just the alerts and notifications and analytics. One thing we just have added, so there's two new things that we've kind of launched. One is available right now, and it is available on anyone with the Success or the Pro plan. It's called the Past, Present, Future Report, which I hate that name. I call it the Sphere of Influence Report. We have all of your old MLS data, and so what it is we automatically import that from the MLS for you. So we can tell you where someone you sold a house 7 years ago is, what their email is, phone number if we think they're likely to sell, and turn on alerts. So that comes as part of our onboarding. And second, we have just launched, well, it's not launched to you guys yet. I've been using it. It's an app for Android and iPhone. So these alerts get pushed to your phone. So anyway, let me walk through this breakdown on the different levels. So I tried to give you a kind of a clear dividing lines. The starter gets you a lot of data. The big difference is you're kind of running around tracking and pulling things one at a time, since your track list is only 100 and your filters are fairly limited. Now, one level up is the Plus plan, which is $29. All of these plans, by the way, are no contract. Instead of doing contracts, what we do is we sign you a trainer to walk you through how to do some of this stuff and give you some strategies. And our goal is within that first 30 to 45 days to get you a listing, and that serves the purpose of a contract. People get a listing in 30 to 45 days using this, don't need a contract because they feel good about it. But the rundown here is that the Plus plan gets you nearly all of the filters that we talked about, but your area is limited somewhat to 250. So that's about the size of one mailing list that you can continuously track. Moving up one more, you get 500 tracked properties, and this is where we added the predicted buyers. One more is the Pro, and this one is the one designed for kind of large campaigns, either digital marketing or if you have multiple different farm areas. You can track 10,000 properties. It includes the foreclosures, and it is the one that includes contact info for the phone numbers and emails. So with that being said, I mean, the Pro, if you're interested in doing that Facebook stuff, that's really a better fit, since the match rate's much higher with the phone numbers, where the other two are more designed for door knocking or flyers or direct mail.
When they pull the numbers, where do they pull them from?
So we have 3 sources today, and we're just adding a 4th one. There's some, can't remember the names, but like there are sources you probably heard of, like Intellius and some of these other companies that collect consumer data. We've purchased them for us, so that's like a fee that we pay every month. So that's why we have these plans with rates, because otherwise we can't provide the data. But we've just added a 4th one because we wanted to get a few more phone numbers, a few more emails, and things like that, in not necessarily in this area, but places outside of downtown. There was some limited details down like very far south, Provo. So there's 4 sources, and we do some cross verification to answer your question. Does that make sense?
How accurate are they?
We try to make them as accurate as possible. So a majority are accurate, but if you find anything wrong, let us know immediately. We have a little chat box down here. No one's in the Philippines or anywhere else. We have everyone in North America, so the chat box, mine 9 to 9. Let us know, and we try to update things super fast. Data, collecting it from literally hundreds of places is never going to be accurate from every one of those places, and people have the ability to change their data on a daily basis. So our goal is to make it as accurate as possible, and if you either bought it for $3 or if you have it included, we'll make it right if, for instance, you're not getting the numbers that you wanted. We'll give you a refund and guarantee those numbers. So good question though. But any other questions on the breakdown here, how these plans are aligned? So one of the last things I want to do, I mean, this is something we do because we want you to use the tool even if it's on the starter. We really want you to use the tool if you're on one of the upgraded versions, which is why you get a trainer. But I'm going to pass out a form that I'll collect on my way out of here. And what it is if you think you want to give this a shot, I would recommend it because, no contracts, and our goal is to get you a listing. There's not a lot of risk. I mean, I've paid more for lunch than like the Plus plan, for instance. So I'm going to pass out this form, and it gives you a promo on any of these plans. So the first plan, the Plus, will give you a $100 rebate in order to get contact details. On the Success and the Pro plan, they're half off for the first 90 days. So it would take it down.
Those are
Yeah,
good things.
no problem. It takes it down from $199 and $99 to $99.50 and $49.50. So basically, for the first 3 months, they're half rates, and our goal during that time is to make you want to keep it for when it changes back to full rates. But you know, I would give it a shot. I mean, we've got a lot of people in Utah using this, so even just to see what your competitors are doing is pretty advantageous. But anything else, guys? Do you have any other questions? Looks like I got a mixture of like new agents and some longer-term agents in the room, so everyone probably use a little different. If you want to reach out to me, I would recommend it. Give me a call, and I can give you my number if you guys are ready. 323-924.
Give a card.
I ran out of cards. I've been doing too many of these. I'm sorry.
323-924?
Yeah, 323-924-8493. And then my email is just Taylor, Taylor, @remine.com. Pretty simple.
I'm sure you can just look them up.
But yeah, guys, I really appreciate it. I'll hang around for a minute or two to collect these forms. Next thing that will happen is someone will reach out to you and set up an onboarding call for about an hour. It's a one-on-one sort of call. But anything else, guys? No?